A ship is sailing across the oceans with no islands in sight, and the bottom of the screen reads, 3 days earlier. Drake McCabe is lying on a wooden table, surrounded by many, many other ill and injured sailors in hammocks and on cots, all being tended to by members of the Church of the Enduring Servants. Beside him are 2 other members we can recognize through context clues as a member of the Explorers Guild, which Drake McCabe was a part of, and a member of the Cynosure Society, notable for their certain lab coat-like looks and scientific rigor, familiar from Season 1. Sitting over Drake McCabe's head and praying over a piece of iron which is dangling over Drake McCabe's chest is another member of the Church of the Enduring Servants, and their prayers are being muttered under their breath. And every time the light catches this small piece of iron dangling above his chest, it seems to give off a glint of red or orange as opposed to the normal or expected silver. The Explorers Guild member and the Cynosure Society scientists are having a discussion or light argument over the Enduring Servants in general. The Explorer says, "I've seen many places, and there are things I could never explain to you how they work. Now I know I'm not a scientist like you and your lot, but you're silly to believe that there's not more out there than what you can figure out and make work from your methods." And the Cynosure Society scientist looks at the Explorers Guild member and says, "Of course not, but that doesn't mean it can't be explained. And every story I hear about these enduring servants doing miracle work, healing those who could not be healed or resurrecting those who supposedly had passed beyond the veil, well, those are things I struggle to agree with or see how they could possibly happen." The enduring servant at the head of Drake McCabe's table does not flinch, just continues praying. And when the camera zooms out a little bit, we catch a glint off of that piece of iron, and then all of a sudden, it does refract and glint that silvery blue. Another enduring servant walks down the stairs to the hold where all of these sick and injured are being held, and announces, "The ship has passed beyond the ruinous border of the Myriads Islands." He looks to the Explorers Guild member and the Cynosure Society scientist and says, "Bring up your explorer while our brothers and sisters examine the others." He looks at a bunch of other enduring servants who are coming down to begin putting their heads over foreheads and looking at injuries, and he adds, "Those closest to death respond best to the binding. Bring those first." And as the camera pans to the side through the wall of the ship, it then transitions into another room, one we are familiar with from earlier in the season, and that is the office of Elder Durand of the Church of the Enduring Servants. He's working on something, reading a book, taking notes, and a commotion is heard outside of his office, and before he can even look up and figure out what's going on, a woman bursts through the door. A younger man in the church looks at him apologetically and says, "Sir, I tried to stop her, but she couldn't," and he says, "It's fine." And we see Marama, the Bloodsworn. This is the second time we've seen her in this office, and we also saw her recently mark somehow or use her Bloodsworn magics that are available to her to be able to track Cassidy McCabe. She does not look like she is doing well. She is breaking out in horrible sweats, and she looks weak and pale. And she looks at Elder Durand and says, "I know where she is. I can get to her. Please, you must let me hunt her. I must close in on her. If I don't, this is going to eat me alive." And Elder Durand looks nervously and says, "You should have thought of that. She was not your target on that island. We achieved what we were meant to do in that sky island. She was unexpected, but you could have let her go. A loose thread she may be, but I don't worry about what she's going to do." Marama looks and says, "She's moving in strange places. I think she's closer to this than you think." And Elder Durand says, This is out of my hands. The church is doing what it's been asked to do. But this goes above me. This comes from the Senate. And on that note, we cut, for the first time, to the grand capital city of the Kyrody Dominion. Carcordia is an enormous city with a population in the thousands. The outer city is dismal slums, leading to approaching industrial levels of development, sort of inner city, large utilitarian structures protected by stout walls, built around a central ruin. As the camera flies over the city and zooms in to focus on the Senate, which, if you think, again, if we talk about our touchstones for this setting, I think this is very Mediterranean, old Greek empires, right? Lots of columns and open forums. This is a Senate building with a recessed central floor with a bunch of circular benches and things around it that eventually come, and there are columns in a circle, lots of historical writings and precedents and rich history in this building. And the Senate is meeting, and a man stands in the center, speaking about a proposal, a motion to be proposed, and there are the men and women of the Senate gathered. He unfurls a scroll and begins to read. This is a time of rebuilding. We have won the war, but we are harried by the uprising of those calling themselves Nourish, and piracy maintains a threat to the stabilization of our Dominion's economy. If it is the will of this Senate, the only hope for solace is to strike out against those preventing our transition to a consolidated power across these seas. Upon these words being uttered, we see a small handful of senators shift in their seats and exit the forum. And when they exit, taking their place and walking in from every entrance you can see into the Senate are hooded bloodsworn who descend upon the senators, forcibly grabbing multiple members of the political elite and restraining them to the ground before holding them up before the rest. The speaker continues after this commotion. As I was saying, we must strike out against those preventing our transition to power, including those who wish to profit off these turbulent times, who we cannot allow to thwart Kyrody's greatness any longer. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ironsworn Sundered Isles Season 2, Heart of the Kyrody Dominion, and another long cold open, but I'm really loving how every episode we get with Cassidy and the evolving problems that are being made relevant to the story, how we can explore those off-screen with other characters who may or may not become future problems for Cassidy, or may just be affected by the events and actions of Cassidy and the crew that we are playing as we do this story. So I hope that you're enjoying those. Let's do some very quick announcements to talk about the month of April. April is a 5 Tuesday month, so there will be a bonus episode this month, and here's what the current calendar looks like. Obviously, this episode and the third week are going to be Ironsworn Sundered Isles episodes, with the perspective checks for this month being an interview I did with Peach of the Dice Sisters, a UK-based Discord for women and non-binary players to find safe, curated places to play games on the internet. I have a lot of community-related discussions coming up with perspective checks over the next few months about how to build a better community. Obviously, we can't solve every problem on the biggest scales, but just ways to think about and be better for the people you play with, the people you may play with, the people who engage in the same kind of hobbies as you, either in your general, regional, actual physical proximity, or the spaces that you are frequenting on the internet. Weeks 4 and 5 for April are actually still a toss-up. I'm debating starting a series of previews for June's upcoming Free RPG Day, which is June 21st here in the US, and I'm debating reaching out to creators for games that are going to be available on Free RPG Day, and maybe doing a little preview of them so people can get excited and find a participating local game store near you to go reap some sweet free RPGs. And there's usually scenarios and introductions to new games and things like that, and it's just a great time to go to a local game store and see what's around you if they're participating. If that falls through and I don't get access or don't hear back from people because it's still 2 months ahead of Free RPG Day itself, then I will probably be doing either a mining media or just some one-player one-shots. Maybe I can get that Eat the Reich game played and recorded in time to put that out as well, because I do want to play that game very badly. So yeah, expect weeks 4 and 5 to kind of be a toss-up. Also, obviously for week 5 as the bonus, I'm going to be releasing a new mech city for the game that I put out, which is also going to be in one of those big TTRPG itch bundles for trans rights. So if you didn't want to spend $5 for my game of mech, you can buy the itch bundle and get a ton of games in addition to mech, and the cities will be free to play. So you'll have at least 2 cities to play through with mech and start having some solo fun. All right, I said quick announcements, but I tend to ramble. Let's get back to it and play some Ironsworn. All right, now we have Cassidy McCabe no longer in control of the Revenant, technically captaining the ship, but really just doing the bidding of Senator Minos. And Damaris Iver has escaped Deepwater Dungeon and is aboard the Revenant alongside Cassidy and Senator Minos. And everyone here has information the others want and or need, whether they know it or not. Before we dive in to where we are going at the behest of Senator Minos, I want to roll a few things to see what's going on. One, before we even roll anything, I want to check in on our vows. We only have 2 ongoing vows at the moment, one of which is our background vow, which is to discover the identity of Will Solace and free Leigh Stirling's ghost. And the other is the bond with the Revenant itself, which was to deliver the Revenant to its place where it can potentially, finally, be freed of the curse of being bound to this ship, whoever's spirit it may be that is bound to this ship, which we as players and audience know is likely the Razor Isle, the central isle in these myriads, known to be cursed with a ruined city that no one goes to anymore. But there's more information that needs to be learned about stuff like this. So before we start, I want to roll a couple of things. First, I want to hear from Damaris Iver. We still don't know everything that he learned when he was investigating this curse or corruption that had been inflicted on people, and how that has made its way all the way up to the Senate, to the point where Senator Minos has Damaris Iver as a person of interest that he was breaking out of the most secure prison in the Kyrody Dominion. So, what does Damaris Iver know? Well, let's consult the oracles. I think I'm going to roll on the prompts to determine which oracles to roll here. 96. That means I'm going to roll on action, descriptor, and focus. So, what was this curse or corruption supposed to do? Let's see. 71 says protect. Now that's interesting because this is a curse or corruption. Created. Ooh, protect created. Now we're getting into it. And the focus. 36 says gadget. Oh, that's actually really interesting. So this curse is meant to... I mean, we already have the constructs, which played a massive role in Season 1. These constructs who are basically created and powered by Sky Iron from Dine's far remote islands in the Reaches. Pure Sky Iron from near the events of the Cataclysm, which is why the magic was so powerful out there. They create these clockwork soldiers and constructs, and this curse was meant to protect those created gadgets. However, someone found out that if you use this iron within the area of these islands in the Myriads, there is a certain type of ruinous barrier, like we said in the intro, right? There's these islands that create almost like, I've been imagining it like a Bermuda Triangle or something like a giant spell ritual circle, right? Think Full Metal Alchemist, where the entire city is actually a whole bunch of symbols that create a giant circle or something like that. I imagine the islands function something like this, and now all of a sudden we have a very classic adventure structure of you must get to these places and deactivate this like ruinous window within which any iron like this becomes corrupted. All of those clockwork soldiers that were created using this pure sky iron outside of this ruinous area function just fine. Case in point, Quan, when we met him before he was reclaimed by Senator Minos. However, if you attempt to do this ritual with this iron in this area, it becomes a curse or a corruption. And sure, it will protect these created gadgets, but it also has a side effect. And when used on normal people, maybe that's why they become the Bloodsworn. Okay, so as Cassidy and Damaris are discussing this finally, and I would assume Senator Minos is there as well, because he's not going to let them chat a whole lot without him present, not only because he doesn't want them keeping secrets, but because he wants this information as well. I think Damaris Iver looks cautiously at Senator Minos and then looks to Cassidy with more resolve and says, "You and I share a group of friends, but our true allegiances are not the same. I am a member of the Meridian Company. They are a group of impossibly wealthy and influential men and women, and they are categorically non-Kyrody. The Dominion's expansion threatens their holdings in an unpredictable way. They sent me here to learn of the weaknesses and strengths of the Kyrody Dominion, as well as to sway men like you, Senator. I only got so far as to learn of a dark secret before being apprehended, though I should have seen it was far too easy to have politicians eager to line their pockets at the expense of their constituents." Senator Minos steps in and says, "Now, I will not deny that many of my associates have sold their honor to the highest bidder, some sadly even lower bidders, but some of us still do this for a higher purpose. A dream, a goal, a better future. Sure, maybe the dream we were sold was a lie. Maybe it's only become less possible because of those you speak of. But not all of us have traded tomorrow for a mere treasure today. I'm probably one of the only senators truly working off my meager public stipend. In fact, my endeavor to get to the root of this corruption has likely sunk my finances into ruin. But I have hope that the truth endures, so please, tell us what you found out." "Well, I'd reconsider your use of the church's idioms, Senator. It appears they are likely highly complicit in the spread of this curse. In my research," and Senator Minos says, "You mean espionage?" Cassidy pipes in and says, "I think even your own kind would call it opposition research, Senator." Damaris begins again. "Enough. Put simply, the Kyrody have revolutionized warfare through the Cynosha Society's refined uses of the rare sky iron. Your basic iron is still a formidable conduit for promises and faith, but loads found in the Sky Isles wandering the world from the eruptions of the Cataclysm carry something far more powerful. Out in the margins and reaches, the nearer you get to the tears of the Cataclysm, the more pure this iron remains. The farther it flies away towards places like these myriads, the more it deteriorates. The Kyrody committed an absurdly large force to known reaches to procure more sky iron for their clockwork constructs, and the Cynosha Society has made great progress despite some utter failures in some of these missions. However, ships that brought sky iron back to these isles in the heart of the Dominion found something most troubling. There is a boundary made up of peripheral islands around these encompassing the capital of the Kyrody, within which this sky iron becomes corrupted. I believe I know which islands make up the periphery. As power sources and new technologies, it is highly unstable. Placing these pieces into clockwork constructs turns them into relentless instruments of slaughter. And worst yet, your church has found that their healing with this corrupted version transforms those who receive it. I did not learn what this transformation entails, but one must assume it is not safe or good. Cassidy speaks up and says, "A woman led an ambush on the Sky Isle where I accompanied the Enduring Blade. She and her allies exhibited unnatural abilities. She told me I would never escape her after she tasted my blood. Do you think she could be..." And Senator Minos says, "I've seen the church's abilities with no evidence of this corruption. In fact, I've seen them bring back pious men and women, as is their holy right. Are you saying these people are all corrupted? That would constitute a large percentage of the entire clergy." Damaris says, "No, I don't think so. My sources tell me there are remote islands where the church performs these miracles. They lie beyond the ruin boundary. No, I believe the church is complying with another power to perform these same rites within the ruin and experimenting with the outcome." For the first time in this conversation, Leigh Stirling is standing before Cassidy, and he looks at her and just mouths the name, Will Solace. At that point, Asana opens the door to the room where these three are meeting and says, Cassidy, ma'am, land spotted. We'll be in the lagoon by nightfall." And Senator Minos says, "Perhaps we can find more answers here," and begins to walk out to prepare the entire crew for landing. We are going to develop our relationship with Damaris Iver, and we are going to mark off 2 boxes of the progress track on that connection. So, because they are a dangerous connection, so we get 2 boxes of progress on that. And now I think we are going to begin the session proper. We are going to roll our 2 dice to determine if either of the moons are full, because having the Revenant's spirit on board could be very interesting for this undertaken expedition we're going to do. So let's see. Nope, we have a 3 on Cinder and a 7 on Wraith. So the sky is brightly illuminated by that pale blue silver light, much like our own Luna moon here on Earth, and it guides us as we continue to sail into the night towards this island that Senator Minos swears there will be answers on. Now, in the intro, I was talking about how Drake McCabe was being taken outside of this ruinous area made up by these outer islands and the myriads here. But I think Senator Minos is bringing us to this island that Drake McCabe contracted this curse or whatever is happening to him on, with the sunken city underneath. So we are going to undertake an expedition. It says here, when you sail an unfamiliar route through perilous seas, then we're going to give the expedition a name and a rank. I'm going to make this expedition more than just getting there. I'm going to make this expedition both getting there and exploring underneath if we can pull that off. So let's see. Our rank is going to be pretty high. I'm going to make this formidable because that's my favorite rank. It just feels like the right amount of a challenge. And that way it's kind of both an undertake, an expedition, and like a delve from OG Ironsworn days. So this is going to be investigate the sunken city on the cursed island. And obviously we got to name this island, right? So let's go to more tables. Here we go. We're going to assume it's cursed, so we're just rolling. Oh, I rolled cursed anyway. That is a 47, so we get leech. Oh, interesting word. 48 is lost. Ooh, I like lost. And 64 is rot. I like lost. Let's go with that, and then maybe with 64, we'll use the one from up here, Namira. So this is going to be an island, and it's going to be the lost city of Namira. Okay, so it says here, then for each segment of the expedition, envision your approach and roll. So are we moving at speed, keeping a low profile, or staying vigilant? I definitely think Senator Minos calling the shots aboard the Revenant, which is not his ship, but he has every reason to believe is strange, especially given what Cassidy has said about the connection between her and the ship, and how and why it is hers to command. He is playing this very cautiously. He is a senator, he is not a pirate, he is not a commander, he is not any kind of explorer, but he is tasked with getting to the bottom of whatever's going on in the Senate, which, again in the intro, some things are going on that he might not know about. We are going to roll plus wits here to kick this expedition off. Let's go. That is a 6 plus 2 for an 8 versus a 3 and a 2 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. We reach a waypoint. We can envision the location and mark progress per the rank of the expedition. So we get one box filled on our expedition here, and we can envision something, or we can roll offshore observations. I just really want to roll on all of these oracle tables because they're all so good. And I think I'm going to add the cursed die, and I'm going to up the cursed die on this one because we know about this island. I'm going to say any even roll on the cursed die is cursed. So here goes. That'll do it. A 55 says, sinister warnings carved in rocks. That is awesome, and that is definitely something that we would have seen in the earlier episodes, Cold Open with Drake McCabe, where Cynosure Society scientists and explorers would have been, as the water recedes and recedes, they are taking rubbings and etchings and trying to translate the warnings that are carved on these rocks. But maybe nobody knows that language of the lost city of Namira, so that is going to be our waypoint. Now, we can choose to divert and examine the waypoint if we'd like, as opposed to just moving on. And I say, why not? Let's do that. We are going to do that. Senator Minos would definitely want as much information as he could get here. He has definitely brought on a few others from his retinue onto the Revenant, and we obviously still have Quan and one other clockwork construct on board after the fight in the prison. So let's see. We're going to roll plus wits. That is a 4 plus 2 for a 6 versus a 7 and a 4 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. You uncover something interesting, but it's bound up in a peril or reveals an ominous aspect of this place. Envision what you encounter, then take plus 1 momentum. Okay, that brings us to 4 momentum, and I want to say that this is ominous. I don't think there's something immediately perilous here as we are approaching, although maybe the Revenant is going to hit some submerged rocks. This is a dangerous place to sail your boat into, and we're going to have to drop anchor and get rowboats out, meaning only a small group of people will go into the Undercity. That makes a lot of sense. I think we're going to actually take some damage to our ship. A sickening crunch and just grind of the bottom of the ship scraping across rocks in this cove or bay as we approach this lost city on this island. The light of the moon of Wraith casting over the mist that is coming up over the waters as we approach the looming shadow that is this island as the tide is retreating. And with that, we actually feel something, or we see Cassidy feel something as she grabs hold of the gunnels on the ship, and she is rocked to the side. Everyone loses their balance for a moment, and she can feel in that connection holding the railings on the Revenant that this ship is very, very upset with her, but also very intrigued at the moment. She's going to call out to drop anchor and suggest that the rest of this expedition be done after bringing a rowboat closer to the sunken city and shores of the island as it exists now. So now we are going to move to our second segment of the expedition and say that who's getting on these longboats? Obviously Cassidy is going. I think we could say Damaris Iver is coming, but maybe not. Would Senator Minos come along? I think that he would have to, given his responsibility for this mission. Maybe we can shed a light on someone new. We'll say Cassidy, Senator Minos, the construct that was not Quan, and part of me was going to say Cassidy's first mate, Asana, but I think that ship rules would say that the two of them shouldn't go anywhere together for the sake of like leadership on the ship. So I guess it's just going to be Cassidy, the ghost of Leigh Stirling, Senator Minos, and a clockwork construct. Okay, and for the second one, I think we are going to be keeping a low profile as we go up, because that's, again, kind of why we're taking this long ship, right? It's vigilance, but I think we're going to roll plus shadow on this, because it's about the approach and doing it without a torch or anything like that, trying to make landfall and explore as we can without, if there's any explorers or Senosha Society members still here, we don't want them to know that we're here. So rolling plus shadow. Oh no. That is a 1 plus 3 for a 4 versus a 3 and a 4 on the challenge dice. So on a weak hit, we make progress, but it costs us. We're going to mark 1 box of progress on this expedition, but we can suffer costs en route, making a suffer move or 2 -1 suffer moves, or face a peril at the waypoint. Now normally I am all for peril at the waypoint, but I kind of want to do something a little different right now. I'm going to endure stress, because this is less about Cassidy. She is nervous at going here. This is not her forte. She's a spy. She can sneak around, but this place feels not right. And it's also affecting Leigh. And I think that Leigh is becoming very, I don't want to use the word unstable, but it's affecting him somehow. And for the first time since Leigh has been around, she can hear him, and he's mumbling, but it sounds like he's talking to someone else. Cassidy's trying to convince herself she is not going crazy, but can she hear someone else? Because remember, Drake McCabe heard a voice when he was down in these caves. We are going to endure stress, taking -2 to our spirit, which was already at 2, so we are at 0, and now we need to roll to resist the stress, rolling plus spirit or heart. We have 0 spirit, so we are rolling +1 for heart. We get a 3, +1 for a 4, versus a 5 and a 2 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. If you are not shaken, you may lose momentum in exchange for +1 spirit. Otherwise, press on. We will lose 1 momentum and get +1 spirit. We are at 1 spirit. Part of me was kind of hoping we would become traumatized there and shaken, because that could be interesting at the moment, but who's to say that's not going to happen soon? Okay. Cassidy is struggling to balance the covert discussion with Leigh Stirling and the hyper-attentive focus needed to keep a lookout while rowing towards this shore on this cursed isle. Because Senator Minos still does not know that Leigh Stirling exists and that Cassidy sees the ghost of her dead ex-lover and partner. So Leigh is beset on all sides by seemingly other ghosts, but Cassidy can't see them, but she sees him struggling a lot. And I think Senator Minos looks at Cassidy and says, "I'm going to need your full attention for this expedition, Miss McCabe." And Cassidy kind of snaps out and goes, right, of course, sorry. And looking up as they approach, we described this place as having relatively steep hills, where the Senosha Society and Explorers Guild members, when Drake was here in the cold open a few episodes ago, rushed down as the water receded away from this lagoon and cove to begin taking notes and seeing what they can find. I think that as Cassidy and Senator Minos approach with the Clockwork Construct rowing. We're going to do our next portion of this expedition. We have 2 progress so far, and this time I believe we are staying vigilant, so we are rolling plus wits. Oh no, that is a 1 plus 2 for wits against a 4 and a 7 on the challenge dice. On a miss, you are waylaid by a crisis or arrive at a waypoint to confront an immediate hardship or threat. Do not mark progress. Pay the price. Okay, I have an idea for what our pay the price could and should be, but just for fun, I like rolling on the table, so let's see. 24. You are separated from something or someone. Oh, I like this better. And it actually kind of works both ways. I think that as the Clockwork Construct is rowing towards the shore, we see the Revenant in the background of this shot as we are getting further and further away across the lagoon where they scraped on those rocks that were carved with this strange language. And what we actually see is it's not the tide receding and going down back into the ocean that causes these ruins to be revealed, but rather it is the presence of something, or perhaps just a random event or what have you, that causes the ruins to rise from the waters of the lagoon and come out. And I think it is going to rise, and we hear that crunching once again of the bottom of this seabed in this shallow lagoon rising and grinding and breaking parts of the Revenant's hull. Maybe, maybe not. The Revenant is a magical ship, but it is separating Cassidy, Senator Minos, and Leigh and the Clockwork Construct from the rest of the expeditionary party on the Revenant. Ooh, this is going to be a big one. I'm going to do my first straight-up Oracle roll of the session. I'm wondering, when these ruins come up, is it a beast? Is there a beast in these ruins, or is it just the ruins? 50 or less is yes, beast. That is an 88, so it is not a beast, but something terrible is happening with these ruins as they rise out of the oceans. Let's go ahead to the oracles for ruins and see what we can find. You know what, let's just go down the line here. What's the ruin condition? 41 says unstable, actively crumbling or sinking. Or the opposite, right? It is sunken, but it is rising. What is the scope? How large are they? 47. Large, imposing structure. Okay. Let's get our first look, and we're going to roll this with the cursed die, and we're going to up the cursed to any even roll. So let's see. That is a 10 anyway, and an 18 on the die. Says echoing with beastly howls. Uh-oh, okay. And the second one is another even result. Is a 20, and that is so perfect because we said it earlier, engulfed in an unnatural mist or murk. And I think that was part of the Drake McCabe intro too. The dice just know. All right, we are going to continue our expedition, but I think that this ruin is going to swallow the rowboat, and perhaps Cassidy and Senator Minos in this construct are going to have to explore it. Obviously Leigh as well, but less in danger physically, but he's definitely in danger. It does say here when you're exploring a ruin, you can explore a waypoint to resolve a survey within a single move, or we're going to need to give it a challenge rank and begin a new expedition. I think that's great, and I think that it's going to be less than the formidable, and we'll tie progress within this ruin to our larger expedition here. Maybe we just roll it into this, because this is kind of what we came for anyway. So let's just keep the formidable going. But I do like the idea of the first thing we're going to do is we're going to explore a waypoint just as a first thing here, just to see if we get anything interesting. Because we are going to approach an entrance to this ruin where these beastly howls and sounds are coming, and this mist is beginning to emanate even thicker from the top of the water as before. That is a 4 plus 2 because we roll plus wits against a 2 and a 3 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. On a strong hit, choose one. We can find an opportunity or gain progress. Finding an opportunity gives us plus 2 momentum. I'm going to mark progress because this is exactly what we came here to do. We are not rocking a whole lot of momentum. In fact, this is catching us on the back heel, so that makes sense. And we are going to continue our expedition here, but now we are going to do our next leg of it, undertaking an expedition. I think that Senator Minos, we could do this. I don't think we are trying to keep a low profile at this point. I think that if there are any researchers left here, they're probably also going to be rushing down to investigate, but we either need to move fast or we need to stay vigilant. Either way, it's a +2 for us. I think that the first thing we're going to do is move at speed to beat the researchers in here. And maybe we leave the construct guarding the boat. So it's just Senator Minos, Cassidy, and Leigh Stirling moving quickly into these ruins. Here goes. Oh my, that is a 6 +2 for edge against 2 8s on the challenge dice. Do I have anything that can help here? Oh, I really should have asked Leigh for help, because that would have gotten us a +1. Ooh, is it too late? Do I retcon a miss with a match? Oh man. I think it's too good. I'm going to, and actually, you know what? This works. I'm going to retcon. I'm going to bend the rules a little bit and say that we used our haunted asset. And Leigh, maybe the reason we moved at speed was because Leigh, when these ruins presented themselves, almost got dragged or was like kind of pulled into these ruins because of all of this ghostly chatter that he cannot tune out at the moment. And it's throwing Cassidy off, and she's very nervous. And when she sees Leigh kind of in pain or suffering from this cacophony of beastly howls and ghostly wails, he rushes into the ruins to see, or maybe because he can't help himself, and that's why we move fast. Cassidy, without explaining it to Senator Minos, just goes, we need to go right now, oh my god, and she rushes in. That's why we're moving at speed. We are using the haunted asset because we are going to call upon their insight. We are following them. We are trying to figure out what it is that Leigh knows in this moment, and it's going to give us a +1. That means we get a strong hit with a match, which marks 1 tick on our Bond's legacy track, and we now have a strong hit with a match on this undertaken expedition. So we are going to reach a waypoint and mark progress. I think I'm even going to make a discovery because of the strong hit with a match. So we are up to 4 progress on this expedition, and we are going to make a discovery. But I think, what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this, but I'm going to flavor it this way. We're going to add the cursed die results to it. If it comes up even, instead of making a discovery, we are going to confront chaos. It is 50-50 on whether this is a positive or a negative kind of discovery. Here goes. It is even, and it's a 98. Oh no. 98 says wrathful beast of monstrous proportions. This is what I get for turning it into a strong hit with a match after the fact. It's gonna punish me. Alright. So, likely, we are going to be entering the fray here in the middle of our expedition, but let's roll a few more things to set this scene. First, I want to roll on a few more of these ruin oracles. The first is the Ruin Mystery table. This might give us some insight into why this particular beast is here. Rolling plus the cursed die, not cursed, and a 34 says Enigmatic Waymarker. Question being, what greater sight or discovery does this place lead to? Ooh, I think that this definitely points to a greater sight, probably being the central Razor Isle, the Cursed Isle, right? If this is one of the peripheral islands that make up this ruinous boundary. All right, let's go ahead. What's the cipher? Oh, well, that's appropriate. Cursed result, 58. Monstrous or beastly guardians. Okay, yep, all right, sure. And let's just flavor this battlefield a little bit. There's a few more things here, but I'm going to save the peril and opportunity in case I get matches. And we're just going to roll twice on ruin features. 96. Descriptor focus, great, okay. 39 says flooded. Yeah, okay, this tracks. And focus. 77 says shortcut. A flooded shortcut. Oh, that's interesting for the battlefield. So we have our showdown against this monstrous beast. but there's probably a way around it. It's just flooded. Ooh, that's very interesting. It's guarding something, but we can get beyond it without defeating it if we go through the flooded section. I love that alternative win con. That's great. Okay, and now let's roll on the Beasts of the Sea table and see what our wrathful beast of monstrous proportions is. Oh no. Oh no. 78. Reef Strider. The shells of these gigantic, squat crustaceans are encrusted with coral and sea life, camouflaging them among reef systems. They are territorial and protective of their habitats. Extreme rank. That is half a box of progress per success. And we are not fighters. Sounds like we are going to use that flooded shortcut. So as always, as we enter the fray, we are going to envision our objective and give it a rank. Obviously, the rank of the Reef Strider is extreme. I'm going to consider any failures more punishing than this rank at right now, because I'm actually going to say our goal in this is to bypass the Reef Strider, not to fight it outright. So therefore, I'm going to drop its rank down to dangerous even, but any misses that we get are going to hit like a truck. And unfortunately, we left the construct back at the boat. What was I thinking? Okay, well, when we do this, we are going to roll to see if we are in control. I think, as always, we are doing this by sizing up the situation, so we are going to roll plus wits. Here goes. Oh no, a 1 plus 2 against a 4 and an 8 on the challenge dice for a miss. So on a miss, the fight begins with you in a bad spot. And the first thing that we are going to do as this thing rises onto its many clawed legs of its crab-like proportions, its enormity, it's going to stand above us. We see coral and bits of water just kind of pour off of its gigantic shell, and we are going to attempt to react under fire by moving into hiding. So we are rolling plus shadow. Here goes. Let's go. That is a 2 plus 3 for a 5 versus a 1 and a 2 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. On a strong hit, you succeed and are in control. Take plus 1 momentum. We have pretty low momentum at the moment. We are at plus 4, but at least we have successfully gotten out of the way and hid. So now we are in control and we can try and gain ground. I think we are going to do this by coordinating a plan, maybe even by fleeing. So we didn't get to mark any progress towards our goal in this by reacting under fire, so I think that maybe at this point we need to come up with the plan and figure out how we're going to go, where we're going to go. We know that there's a flooded passage, but can we get there? So we are going to roll plus wits to gain ground. A 3 plus 2 for a 5 versus a 3 and an 8 on the challenge dice is a weak hit. It says here, on a hit, you stay in control. On a weak hit, I can only choose one. Mark progress, take plus 2 momentum, or add plus 1 to your next move. We are going to make progress because we have come up with the plan, which is, there's no way we kill this enormous crab. We need to dive into that flooded section over there and swim out into another section of these caves. Just hope that there is air somewhere else. So that is 2 boxes of progress, and now we are going to, I think this time we're actually going to strike, and it's going to be, I'm going to roll this as Cassidy's stats, but this is going to be Senator Minos. He pulls a pistol from his hip and he says, I'll shoot at it and buy us some time to run. So we are going to attack at a distance, rolling plus edge, which is plus 2. Oh, bad. Bad, bad, bad. 1 plus 2 for a 3 versus a 6 and a 9 on the challenge dice. I got nothing that can help with that. On a miss, the fight turns against you. You're in a bad spot. Pay the price. Okay, no progress, and I said misses are gonna hurt, so this is going to hurt bad. Let's roll pay the price. 12. You face a tough choice. Oh no. What could that mean? Are we gonna get separated right now? Is it gonna be Cassidy has to choose whether or not to save Senator Minos? I think that he gets up, he shoots, and Cassidy begins running, but this crab is so much faster than we expected for its size, and its enormous claw goes to grab him, and luckily it does not grab and squeeze him because it would pop his tiny, fleshy little body like a grape. but instead it grabs even more than you'd think, and it's actually grabbing like a chunk of the ruins, and for the moment he's safe, but he's being held in this crab's grip, and Cassidy's going to have to determine whether or not she's going to rush in to try and save him, or if she's just going to jump into the flooded passage. And obviously, Cassidy McCabe is going to save Senator Minos, even though he's a problem that if he was gotten rid of, that would solve a lot of her issues at the moment, but she just can't do it. This man knows too much and is way too good of a potential source or ear or what have you for a spy, so she is going to, now that we are once again in a bad spot, she is going to clash, and she is going to use her knife to attempt to distract this giant crab into dropping Senator Minos. Here goes. We are rolling +1 because of our cutthroat ability. Oh, wow. Okay, so that is a 3 +1 for iron, +1 for our cutthroat ability against a 1 and a 4 on the challenge dice, meaning so on a strong hit when you clash, mark progress twice, you overwhelm your foe and are in control. That is surprising. I think that maybe Cassidy is going to run up and just try and distract this giant crab, but what happens is she finds a weak spot in its legs, and this stab from her dirk, her long dagger, kind of goes in, and a massive spray of just blood comes out. Fun fact about crustaceans, I don't know if you guys know this, they don't have a circulatory system, so basically all their blood is just always just kind of loosey-goosey all up in their business, and they need to regulate it by doing certain, I think it's basically how they breathe, right? Like it's constantly keeping it in motion, moving it around their body. So when she stabs this thing, it starts bleeding, and it's having a really hard time keeping its blood inside, and it drops, and even just that drop allows Senator Minos to fall to the ground. He is battered and hurt, but at the moment we have a moment to consider what we're going to do next. We are back in control. We have 6 progress in this fight because, again, we're not fighting it. If we were, that would have been half a box of progress. But Senator Minos looks at Cassidy, and she runs over, grabs him, and we are going to gain ground with edge by fleeing. Here goes. Can we do it? A 5 +2 versus an 8 and a 3 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. On a weak hit, we stay in control, and we can only choose one. We are going to mark progress up to 8. Because we are booking it. And I think that, again, I really should just go for the 10 every time, but I'm going to attempt to take decisive action and get out of here. We are diving into this pool. We roll our 2 challenge dice against our progress of 8. Can we get through? A 6 and a 3 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. You prevail, take +1 momentum, any objectives remain, and the fight continues, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to say that that is not only a success. As we get out of there, we are going to mark 1 box of progress on our investigation of the sunken city of Namira. So we are up to 5 progress on that one, as we are going to swim through this flooded section. Now, it's not going to be that easy. I'm going to face danger with iron because this is going to hurt a lot. We have to hold our breath and swim for a long time. We are doing this with endurance. Let's just do it for fun. Why did I do that to myself? A 1 +1 on iron for a 2 versus a 4 and a 10 on the challenge dice. Do I burn my momentum to turn that into a weak hit? I think I have to reset my momentum down to 2 and make that a weak hit, so we succeed, but not without a cost. We suffer a suffer move. We are going to take -1 to our health because, ouch, that hurt. And as we both emerge out the other side of this flooded section, coughing, crawling out of the water onto dry land underneath this cave, in the caves beneath this lost city, far, far removed from wherever the Cynosure Society and Explorers Guild people are rushing down to the now revealed ruins of the lagoon, I'm going to roll 1 Oracle. This is either going to be a peril or an opportunity. Just like we did earlier, I'm going to add the cursed die to this roll. If it's even, it is a peril. If it is odd, it is an opportunity. What do we find on the other side of this shortcut? That is odd, so it is an opportunity. And a 59 says, a key to understand a cipher or language. Perfect! Perfect! We were saying that there's carved rocks with an unknown language. And this entire ruin, the cipher, the mystery, was that there was... Ooh, okay. Okay, we have the key to understanding the language that is carved all over these ruins. Ooh, this is going to be interesting. But I think that's where we end this session, and we will pick up there next time. Wow, that is awesome. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Ironsworn Sundered Isles Season 2, and if you like what I'm doing, consider going out there, finding me on the internet at Rene Plays Games. Email me directly at reneplaysgamespod@gmail.com if you'd like to talk about games, or get on the show, or suggest things that you would like to hear more of. That'd be awesome. If you have a second, leave a rating and review on your podcatcher of choice. Goes a very long way towards just helping the algorithm gods funnel me towards more people who would like, hopefully, this show, and then we just get more people that we can all talk to. If you want to talk to more people like us who like this kind of thing, consider joining the DMs After Dark Discord, of which I am a baby podcast within the DMs After Dark umbrella, quote-unquote, network. It's just the two podcasts. I'm just a member of the DMs, and I edit their audio, but I just don't have time to stream with them. But it's a great place that is slowly growing, and we've been having really fun talks over there. There's a pets channel. Just come hang for the sweet, cuddly baby pets. And lastly, if you feel insanely generous, you can throw me a few bucks on my Ko-fi page just to help cover the cost of podcast hosting and the transcription software that I use, as well as where I book the interviews for perspective checks. It just helps cover the costs of that, and any extra money will just be going towards art for original games that I'm going to be putting out, ideally for very cheap, so it just means a ton. So thank you so much, and until next time, take a chance, dive right in.